Hello, theologians, and welcome to week 3. Once saved, always saved. So, what do you think of that idea? This week, we're going to be examining the idea of once saved, always saved in two specific ways. First of all, we'll explore the idea itself and see that it's not really the best way of framing the doctrine of assurance. And then secondly, we're going to be looking at a case study of how once saved, always saved might apply. First of all, what is once saved, always saved? Well, essentially, just like it sounds, once saved, always saved says that once you're saved, you'll always be saved. You can't be unsaved. You can't lose that salvation. And in a sense, that's true, but it's also a bit confusing. It makes it sound like there is only one definition of being saved. Kind of like eating pizza only means eating pizza. So saying once saved, always saved is like saying once you were eating pizza, you are eating pizza. Yeah, I guess so. But salvation is a lot more complex than eating pizza. Different parts of salvation, like regeneration, conversion, justification, sanctification, perseverance, glorification, all of these mean different things. And although some people say that once saved, always saved is the P in TULIP. And remember, the TULIP is total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of the saints. And remember, perseverance of the saints is persevering. And we're going to see that actually once saved, always saved isn't really perseverance, because perseverance says that a believer will continue on the road of salvation even when it's difficult. I mean, think of it this way. In salvation, there's a beginning point, which could be thought of as regeneration. And then there's going to be an end point, which could be thought of as glorification. But according to the Bible, there's also a middle part. You know, if you think like a road trip, you pull out of the driveway and at the end of your destination, you're going to pull into the parking lot of, let's say, Disneyland. But most of the trip is during the trip. On the road trip, this during is when the unexpected might happen. Your car might run out of gas. You might get lost. A whole bunch of different things might happen. And just because you began the trip doesn't mean you will actually end the trip the way that you wanted. Once saved, always saved says that once you start the trip, you end the trip. It pretty much ignores the middle part. It's kind of like saying that once you pull out of the driveway, you pull into the parking lot of Disneyland. But perseverance says that once you pull out of the driveway, you can be sure that you will eventually navigate your journey in such a way that you actually will pull into the driveway of Disneyland. The problem with once saved, always saved is that it is an unhelpful way of dealing with the question, can you lose your salvation? Once saved, always saved says you can't lose your salvation because you actually have your salvation, which is kind of true, but it conflates the beginning, regeneration, and the end, glorification. It says pulling out of the driveway is the exact same thing as pulling into the Disneyland parking lot. Once saved, always saved is trying to argue against Arminianism, which does distinguish between the beginning and the end, but has a unique idea about the middle part. So, for example, in Arminianism, the beginning is regeneration and the end is going to be glorification, or it might be damnation, because the middle part, there's an option A, where you do persevere, but there's also an option B where you might not persevere, and you will end in damnation rather than glorification. So the problem with once saved, always saved is that the beginning equals the end. The problem with Arminianism is that the beginning doesn't determine the end. From a more Reformed perspective, then, perseverance does address the middle part. It distinguishes between the beginning and the end and states that the middle will result in a specific way. So you have the beginning, which is regeneration. You do have the end, which is glorification. And then you only have one journey, which is perseverance. And we don't know what that perseverance looks like, but we know that it will end the way we want it to. The bottom line then is that since we want to be accurate theologians, we're not going to use the phrase once saved, always saved. And here's the second thing we will be doing with the once saved, always saved idea. We'll be looking at a case study. If you look at the back of Greer's book, you'll see an endorsement from Josh Harris. Now, it's pretty ironic that Harris would recommend a book about not losing your salvation. Harris was the author of the popular book that came out quite a while ago called I Kissed Dating Goodbye. I think that's the name of it. But since he wrote that book, he's been pretty busy. He denounced the whole idea of that book. And then he decided he would step away from Christianity. And I'm going to be linking to some resources that tell Harris's story. And we'll be talking about his decision to leave the faith over the next week. So check out the Harris resources and be prepared to discuss his situation during a synchronous session with me and the other students. I look forward to what you have to say about Harris's situation. So as we continue to work on ways of confronting and comforting fellow believers, let's make sure that we are sharpening our communication skills and actually helping by clarifying rather than confusing our theological language.